1988, Apollo Kids, Brooklyn, October. Thomas's crew watched him search every pocket, anxious to find what he was looking for. Ha! I got close to $6 left. That's 2 cheeseburgers for me. Ha! Come on, T, Julius whined. Chill with that shit. It's bad enough you always screaming it when we play in CeeLo. Stop your blood clot crying, Thomas did his best Jamaican accent. I like Alf. He a funny little dude. Ha! Yo big ass be buggin', said Julius, sockless and irritated. And all this walking is hurting my feet. Let's get there. His soaking wet British nights had rubbed blisters on his heels. Othello was doubled up. He took a pair off and gave them to his boy. No one had train fare, and they were miles away from the block where Thomas was known as the Kid. At 14, he'd hit a growth spurt, expanded steadily upward and outward. Othello had his own nickname for him, the Titan. It was a play on his initials and his size. The other kid, Wesley, was 15, black as night, and wanted to be the Mac. Julius, chubby and short for 13, was the hype man, usually popping more shit than he could back up. 18-year-old Victor had been locked up almost a year. The twins, Warren and Allison, were both 16 and at home. Together, they were known as the Young Guns, all decked out in hunting gear and dickies from the Army surplus. They looked more like construction workers than regulators. It was just after 10:30 p.m., and the Guns had just picked up a fat dime on Nostrand and St. John's. They told jokes and stories while marching through an autumn sleet on their way to Alex's Mystery Meat Market, where they sold giant-sized cheeseburgers, fries, and a soda for $1.99. Julius and Wesley were hungry and broke after they'd spent their combined $3.25 on the weed. He be killing me trying to snap off. You should have rode your bike if your feet hurt, Pee-wee Herman. Thomas imitated Pee-wee's dance and all. I've got a silver shadow. Ha ha. You see that guy on 227 the other night? Asked Othello. I seen that freak, answered Wesley. I seen Sandra's big ass too. I'd hit that ass so hard she'd be calling my name in that screechy ass voice. Wesley! Julius jumped in. Word to the mother, I'd hit that too. Othello hit him with the right. Your little ass would get swallowed up in her shit. You'd be there like, Mary, help me, Mary. I'm inside Sandra's big ass. Wesley struck with a left. Right. And Mary would be like, sorry, Julius, Wesley's coming in. You should have beat Calvin's punk ass and got with Brenda instead. Julius stopped laughing. Her grill is tore up. I'd be like Ice-T dissing LL. Nah, man. I don't want none of that, man. You could keep that, man. Thomas went for the knockout. Quit lying. She looked as good as Vanessa on The Cosby Show. And you love her Gumby afro wearing ass. He peeped Julius getting upset. Nah, but this my bro, Thomas said before imitating him. Come on, T. Let me hold the tech. Let me hold down the tech. Othello was doubled over in tears, laughing and begging. Oh, shit. Please tell it again, T. Why I had to miss it. I'd pay to see that shit. Wesley joined in, imitating Julius as he smiled proudly. Where the cash at? Where the stash at? Thomas liked to see him that way. Julius, lace up your shoes and roll another L, and hurry up. I got a story to tell. New York City, New Year's Eve, morning rush, 1987. The number 4 train squeaked along the tracks, worming its way through the shit-brown core of the rotten apple. Traffic on it was lighter than usual at 7 in the morning, as many had the day off. The unlucky passengers kept to themselves, nodding or reading their papers, while a family of British tourists marveled at the great bridges that connect the boroughs. Their young son, off in his own world, blasted Queen through his headphones, leaving an old lady who sat behind them with whiplash from scowling at the music in front of her, and Thomas and Julius drinking and cursing in the back. Damn, T, why your moms be bugging like that? She crazy, said Thomas angrily. I'm sick of this shit. I'm a grown-ass man. Guyetta had become the crazy mom on the block who didn't take any shorts. She'd done everything from flushing Thomas's work down the toilet to pulling knives on his friends. Word, I don't know what my mother would do if she caught me fucking in the crib, said Julius. Probably nothing, as many times as I done caught her doing it. Mine shouldn't say shit either. It ain't like I was in her bed this time. Julius turned to Thomas. You be doing it in your old girl's bed? She don't. That's why she's so mad. She need to go out and get her some dick. He heard her voice in his head. Thomas, you better check yourself. Unlike her mother, Gaeta couldn't accept the fact that, although she'd brought Thomas into this world, he did not belong to her. She could give him her love, but not her thoughts. Fuck that bitch, Thomas said. He'd been mad at her since Christmas Eve, when she'd come home early to find him drunk and his girlfriend hiding naked in the closet. She took his keys and kicked them both out. He'd been wearing the same pinstripe lees and sleeping on the roof of their building ever since. Each day, he'd call home begging Gaeta to let him back in, but she refused to talk. That hurt. She'd always been there for him, and the feeling of being a motherless child was not something Thomas was used to. At the same time, it struck him strangely funny, all those instances where he'd let the sound of her voice go in one ear and out the other. Now, as the train crept towards Strong Island, his ego and id did battle, while his superego refereed. Thomas, look at me, baby. I love you, pled Gaeta with tears in her eyes. Leave the riffraff alone. They're nothing but trouble. Focus on your dream. The sky is the limit. Thomas was only 16, and already he despised looking ahead. He had a feeling his best days were behind him, and there wasn't much left to see. In grammar school, he was the cute, chubby kid. Now, the teachers looked at him with disgust before telling him he was a crook who'd never amount to anything. And as down as his girl Nikki was, she couldn't resist taking cheap shots at him. You Jenny Craig-eating motherfucker. You crazy, T, said Julius. Stop fucking around and tell me who was up there. Me and my bitch, said Thomas. Damn, why you need to know who I'm giving dick to? The train came to a stop. A 3-man crew made their way through the car carrying a radio. Thomas knew one of them from school. He talked too much. The kind of guy whose mouth moved fast, but brain moved slow. As they passed, he pointed to Thomas and said, Yo, check it, son. You see that big ashy guy right there in the red and black lumberjack coat? Duke a bum. He be sewing tags on his shirts and shit. Julius snickered. You gonna let him punk you like that? Thomas answered instantly. Man, please, give me the tech. Julius reached inside his bubble coat and handed it over. Thomas jumped up, aimed it at the clown's face, and with no hesitation, pow! Motherfucker, stay in your place. The train was in an uproar as the passengers panicked. Thomas grinned as the body dropped to the floor. The sight of seeing a screaming child who moments ago rested peacefully in his mother's arm shook him up. It was like stumbling on an old photograph, one that took him way back to the happiness and pain that had always haunted him. The British boy, firmly seated in his world, stared calmly at the kid through limpid blue pools, imbibing them. Thomas realized the choice he'd made. Excerpt 36.
Mama just killed a man, put a gun against his head, pulled my trigger, now he's dead. Mama, life had just begun, but now I've gone and thrown it all away. Mama, didn't mean to make you cry. If I'm not back again this time tomorrow, carry on, as if nothing really mattered.
But that was just fantasy, the part of the story he never told. Thomas's id had managed a comeback. This was the real life. The train came to a stop. The Brits got off, and a 3-man crew made their way through the car carrying a radio that played Top Billing. The old lady threw a fit. Thomas knew one of them from school. He talked too much. The kind of guy whose mouth moved fast, but brain moved slow. As they moved past, he pointed to Thomas and said, "Yo, check it, son. You see that big ashy dude right there in the red and black lumberjack coat? Duke a bum. He be sewing tags on his shirts and shit." Julius snickered and asked, "You gonna let him punk you like that?" Thomas thought for a moment. He watched as the crew took seats the other end of the car. Julius was holding a tech and a 9 that Victor left at Thomas's crib when he turned himself in. He followed his intuition. "What you think? Give me the tech." "For what? What you gonna do?" "This dude wanna be a comedian. I got a joke for his ass." Thomas whispered something to Julius. "You gonna rob him on the train?" asked Julius. "Ain't nobody ever robbed no train." "So what? Man, we dead broke. Ain't nobody giving a shit. Fuck this clown. I'm about to get paid." Julius was something like a hybrid. It didn't take much gas to fill his tank up. "All right." He put his hand in his coat and said, "Yo, T, let me hold the tech." Thomas viewed him askew. What he saw surprised him. In Julius's eyes was that glaze, the same kind you find in a fiend's eye when they crave. "All right, but if the cops come busting, you better bust back, 'cause I ain't running, and I ain't with no fucking asthma attacks." Julius gave him the Beretta. Thomas cocked it. "Is you with me?" he asked. "I'm ready." "Is you with me?" Julius had nothing to lose and everything to prove. He put 1 in the chamber and let 32 snooze. "Man, please, I cock and squeeze for you, kid." Thomas smiled. "My man, let's make it happen." NYMP, October. "Give up the loot," they all shouted in unison. So I pops one through the roof and I'm like, "Everybody get on the motherfucking floor," said Thomas. "What the old lady say?" asked Wesley. "Lord have mercy, the devil is alive and breathing." Othello was still laughing. "You dudes is crazy robbing trains. Billy the motherfucking Kid." He hit Julius. "That's your hero, huh? Bobby Brady?" Thomas corrected him. "Yo, how many times I gotta tell you? That was Jesse James." Julius wiped the smile off his face and went to work. Big T was stacking brothers like, What? Give that shit up." We was snatching purses and chains, leaving whelps on dudes' necks. I started to get the old lady for her shit too. I told her, "Sit your old ass down, lady, before we take your hat." T got the pregnant bitch for her baby bag. The baby wouldn't fucking stop crying, so I went in there, grabbed a bottle and was like, "Here, bitch, shut that little bastard up." Thomas laughed. This motherfucker playing stepdaddy in the middle of a stick-up. The next stop was coming, so I yelled, "Come on, motherfucker." "By the time I get to the other end," said Julius, "T done made the dudes with the radio come out of their pants." Them bitches was about to piss on theyself, and I'm like, "Where the cash at? Man, where the stash at?" I snatched they loot up. T kicked the one dude dead in his face. Pow! And was like, "Motherfucker, stay in your place." And we was 5,000 G. Located in the heart of Marcy, Alex's wasn't the same stage as Willy Burgers in Harlem. It was sort of an off-Broadway thing, but the game don't stop. So even on nights like this, the show must go on. When the guns turned the corner, the production was in full effect. Headlights reflected off rims like bling as Maximas and Mustangs with low-profile kits passed by gliding. Behind the grill, the Mexicans kept it business as usual with EPMD and got the job done with Big Daddy Kane. 10 or 12 dudes were out front kidding and playing around, a few of them listening to Bad Little Shorty, no older than 11, as he split a Dutch master with his fingernail and boasted about how no rapper could rap quite like he could. "Don't me and that dude be flowing alike?" "Nah, but for real. Dude, I'm better than batteries, and I'm coming up with this." He pulled his first gun from his sleeve, an FMJ Dillinger with 2 bullets. "I'ma cop me that 944 bubbleback Porsche." "Shit, y'all playing. I'm out here till the sun come up. This is real life, and I'm serious." They laughed, not knowing what to make. The little flashy dude dressed in all black, rocking a 2 big troop jacket and Air Force Ones. Julius hated on him a little as he and Wesley split Thomas's second cheeseburger. A red 325L cruised by and some hotties hailed it like it was a taxi. "Check it out, yo," Othello pointed. "Big money whip." Yo, I know dude, said Thomas. He a senior at the school. Thomas laughed. But he ain't never there. I remember we was in study one time and he gassed this bad bitch to show the class her tits. His crew was from Marcy, the commission. I heard about them cats, said Othello. They went out of town and blew up. A few months later, bodies started showing up. New Jersey, Trenton, August. AD was over an hour late, and normally that would have been fine. It'd been 2 months since he'd checked in, and Jessica was used to not having him around. She'd hoped that today would be different. Come morning, she'd be leaving for her freshman year at Tennessee State. Too upset to speak, she sat in a booth of a New Jersey Bennigan's, picking at her gray patch and jotting down her feelings. Probably for the last time, you are on your way to meet me, and as usual, you're late. And as usual, I'm upset. But unlike usual this time, I'm saying fuck it, because after today, I don't have to go through this shit with you anymore. I don't have to be disappointed by you being late as hell, only to call hours later and tell me you can't come. I don't have to throw away my pride by waiting patiently until you can make time for me. I don't have to be on pins and needles around you, worried about the consequences if I make one wrong move. I don't have to worry about planning where to go, what to wear, or what to do. On the other hand, it's probably the last time I'll have to kiss you, touch you, and be with you. Am I happy to be leaving you? No, but it's for the best. Who would have thought the way we met that I would fuck you, fall in love with you, and be fucked around by you? Maybe you're not to blame. Maybe I should blame destiny or some shit like that. Whatever the reason, it's just another chapter in the book titled Life. One ends and another begins. Still, I had hoped that my book would end, and they both lived happily ever after. It's strange. When I was little, I always read fairy tales, and I always knew that I'd end up in one. Following Jessica's white-haired wisdom through the Garden State had led AD to a wonderland of success. By the 86 summer, the commission had done it. The summer of 85, there'd been no shows in the hood, their faces rarely seen. After Sheik Omar was taken care of, all went as planned in Trenton. Like butter, baby. There was that one incident at the Turnpike Motel, but come on, Holmes had to know he was wrong. Once the Volvo was fixed, Bebop got a seat for his bike and more. As expected, Theo superbly handled the day-to-day operations of the crew, and Ayaz, whose small part was instrumental, had been a perfect liaison. A car accident in May of this year resulted in the demise of another son of Marcy. But one man's loss is often another man's gain. Danny Dan was well on his way to becoming major when his career ended on the same stretch of highway that AD's began on. Those who talk say he went out fast the way he lived. They say at 160 miles an hour, the impact would have torn anything less than his Mercedes in half. They say he predicted that's how he'd go and wouldn't have had it any other way. Brooklyn showed its love by throwing him a Bed-Stuy parade. Not one for funerals, 80 didn't intend. Instead, he left Bebop with an envelope to put inside Dan's sports car-shaped casket while he and Theo took a trip to Virginia. Like most guys who were doing it, Danny Dan would spread love the Brooklyn way by bringing up a few carloads of honeys from the South. Guys in Marcy would run through him and send him back to the country with stories to tell. Theo, slender and handsome, but still -6 of 6 feet, had matured well. What he lacked in height, he made up for in energy. He'd kept in contact with one girl named Bonnie. When he heard about Dan's death, he gave her a call. The next day, he picked her up at the bus station in a Toyota Celica. NYMP, May. Sup, baby? How was the ride? Fucked up, said Bonnie with an attitude. I was sitting next to some old men. The one next to me snored the whole trip, and the one behind me kept sweating me for my number. Shoot, you know you could have came and got me. Slow up, love. I told you we've been handling business. Shit's been hectic with everybody bugging on this funeral. Plus, you ain't got to worry about all that no more because this is yours. You like it? A nice little hoopty for you to get around with. See? Ain't I always there for you? Bonnie was like a race car in the red. She blushed and jumped back in her lane. Yeah, you is. Right. So, now I need you to be there for me. What's the 411? I need to know the business out there. Who's been talking? Who's making moves? What's up with your brother's crew? Nothing, Theo. Everybody's kind of messed up about Dan crashing. Most people can't do anything with his spots because they're broke, and the others are just worried about finding another supplier. But mostly, everybody's just getting ready for the funeral. I guess after that, they'll start making moves. And my brother's is on a paper chase. They with you. Whatever. That's good, because this is how it's going to be. Tell your brothers that we want thoroughbreds that's going to stay outside. I mean, even when the heat's out, stay outside. Tell them to let people know they want us on their side. All right? Later that evening in Newport Beach, Bonnie, a self-proclaimed down bitch, paced the floor while her brother's crew rounded up the natives and escorted them through the basement where they all got her speech. Check it. Y'all know how it's going down. The commission has got a proposition where y'all can make dollars. But they man ain't selling quarters, so y'all need to get your weight right. Bonnie dropped a half key of soft white powder on the table. He got jobs for you. Dudes' faces lit up. Most of them have never seen uncooked coke. You hitting us off of that? Asked the brave one. This shit is the best, she confessed. I ain't got it to give, but I'll give you a test. After that, most left happy. But there's always a problem, dude. Caesar was a Danny Dan holdout. A 28-gram copping minor league dude with a minor league connect. He laughed in Bonnie's face. I got my own thing going. I ain't with it, and my man ain't either. Bonnie put her hand on his shoulder and personally led him to the door. That's cool too. AD will be here the day after tomorrow. For you. New Jersey, Trenton, August. A half an hour later, AD strolled into the restaurant and gave the hostess a name. You're in trouble, she said, flirting with him. The look on Jessica's face said it all. He'd been expecting the worst, and that's exactly what he got. She gathered her things when she saw him approaching. He grinned and said somewhat sarcastically, No point in leaving now, Jess. I'm here. Ain't nothing funny, Seth. You know how important today was to me. I know. I'm sorry. But it's just one day. I'll make it up to you. Not this time, Seth. Money won't make this problem go away. She tossed him the letter and the check and then stormed towards the bathroom. He looked at the waitress. Add a Monte Cristo and 2 rum punches to this. He gave her the check and followed Jessica to the bathroom. When they returned to the table, she sat silent as AD munched on his food. You gonna drink that? He asked. It's your favorite. She pushed the drink aside. What's up with all the drama, Jess? What? You think I was out fucking around? I was taking care of business for both of us. When I'm off track, you're supposed to keep me focused. Focused on what? She waved her finger and spelled it out a little too loudly. Seth, you are a drug dealer. What do you do that's so important or stressful that I need to keep you focused? How much focus do you need to stand on the corner? AD kept munching like he didn't know her, and Jessica apologized. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean that. It's just, sometimes I trip on how happy we could be. You're not stupid, Seth. You went to school and got good grades when you wanted. You could be a great thinker or a philosopher. You don't have to go to Sidewalk U. Get your GED, apply for financial aid, and meet me in Tennessee next semester. We could get an apartment on campus and... AD rolled his eyes and cut her off. She'd had finally gotten a little rise out of him. I ain't going nowhere. This is my kingdom. I created it, and I'm comfortable here. Jessica got frustrated and questioned him again. And what happens to those who go against the king? What, off with their heads? How long is that going to last? You really think people don't know about you? Trust me, baby. They're talking. You're making more money than everyone here, and since you showed up in Trenton, people have come up dead or missing or in jail. Do you have anything you want to tell me, huh? What really happened to Omar? 80 didn't blink. All my girls think I'm crazy or some kind of monster for talking to you. I had my doubts at first. I mean, I still do. It's like I tell them, the 80 I know would never do that. But now, I've got to wonder, just who is the real AD? Don't you care what people think? Over the years, AD had become virtually unreadable. One could look into his eyes and find nothing. No love, no hate, no fear, no anger. He kept the barrier up that prevented most from getting inside. Outside of Shirley and Theo, Jessica was the one person who'd come close to knowing him, and at times, she still felt like a stranger. What she did know was that he had a ruthlessness about him. He was controlling, with a knack for silently instilling fear in the most formidable opponents. He could become almost sociopathic when his authority had been threatened, or when something stood in his way. Jessica knew she'd crossed a line. She felt something inside him shift. His face went totally blank, and the tension she felt in the restaurant was like a knife in her windpipe, taking a little bit of life from her as he uncharacteristically tried to convey his feelings on our America. You know, Jess, it must be easy for you to sit there telling me all the things that I could be doing, but you can't judge what I do unless you lived my life. You try looking at the same four walls every day 'cause it ain't no money to go outside. Your stomach always rumbling 'cause your mother is out getting high with the food money. Then, when there is money and she's at home, you wished she'd just take it and leave. Pfft, believe me, you ain't never felt pain until you've heard your mama yelling and crying night after night. You choose between those two because that's what I had to do. At 9, I saw a 7-year-old boy with his brains blown because 2 kids had just thrown him out of a 5th-floor window. Jessica winced. That's horrible. You think? I used to play with that kid. He was like the only friend I had. And when I saw him, I didn't even feel sorry for him. I felt sorry for me. Why? Because he was gone. He found a way out. Now I found a way out. And I ain't never going back. I don't need college. I got my MBA from Marcy. So why don't you go find yourself a doctor or a lawyer or somebody? Because I ain't ready to be what you want me to be. Jessica gave in. There was no fight left in her. Fine then. Take me home. You won't see me anymore. But you know what, Seth? I think the real problem is I'm not what you want me to be. The short drive to Jessica's house was turning out to be the longest of 80's life. The hum of Pirelli treads gliding over even asphalt was the only sound as shocks and silence held the two in suspense. 80 enjoyed the ride. You could roll a set of rims forever out here. He turned to see if Jessica was as hurt as he thought she was. Deep in his heart, he felt something too, but pride wouldn't let him show it. He watched as the tears rolled down her cheeks. He couldn't see them coming down his eyes, so he played the stereo to let Guy do the crying. Excerpt 37. Parked in front of her house, he passed Jessica a tissue, put his arm around her, and asked entreatingly that she change her mind. Things ain't gonna be the same without you, but I told you it was a few things about my life that I couldn't explain. Stay with me. We'll get something to sip and go to our spot. You left some stuff over there anyway. Come on, Jess. We could work it out. Eventually, she surrendered. Regardless of what happened, Jessica couldn't bring herself to hate him, even though she had tried. For her, love was stronger than pride. NYMP, October. AD stepped out of the car onto the block, a single gold tooth and a cobra medallion sparkling as he traded pounds. He'd gained respect not only as a hustler, but his friend Chaz had entered the music game. A few weeks earlier, he'd released a single with him and AD trading verses. Now, the hustler was gaining notoriety as a rapper too. He eyed Thomas's crew as he bought a few quarter juices. "What's up, youngins? Y'all a long way from home, ain't ya?" The gang nodded, and Thomas answered, "We over here trying to peep life like you know it, rich and famous." He and Thomas smiled and slapped hands. "Sup, kid? I seen you in the halls and around the way. I like your style." Thomas couldn't believe it. "Stop fronting, dude. You the man. I saw Heather in study that day." "You saw that?" "You saw her later on when she gave me head by my locker." "What?" Thomas could only fantasize. "I'd love to be getting it like that." "I'd rather be getting it like you, the fast way, ski mask way. Know what I mean?" Thomas was enjoying his 15 minutes of fame when AD motioned to the car. "Yo, if you got a minute, let's ride around for a while." Thomas turned to his boys. "Y'all cool out here for a few? I'm going to talk some business with my man." Inside the office, he studied the interior as AD fired the ignition. "Whoa, you got a CD in here? Car phone? It's tight. Who's that playing?" "That's some bootleg shit." AD took out the Black Album and popped in b.i.g's first full-length disc. It was the hottest thing on the streets. "I heard all the coaches wanted you for the football team. Why you ain't join?" "Not my thing," Thomas answered. "Ain't nobody fucking up my spleen." AD laughed. "I know a man's time is money, so here." Thomas took the roll of money and counted it. "Whoa, a G? That's love. But I'd take this ride for free." He gave it back. Thomas knew that loyalty couldn't be bought, and that it played a big part when making new friends. "Nah," AD replied. "That's love right there." AD figured they were off to a good start. He got busy explaining to him the usual things he did when coaching his team. "I feel all that," said Thomas. "And no disrespect, man, but a dude can't tell me nothing about these corners. I wrote my team a fucking manual, so you know. I know the rules." He had AD's full attention. "Let me hear him." Thomas blessed him with his flow and the 10 crack commandments. "How you like that?" Thomas asked, hyped. "I could make you famous." AD was convinced that the kid was coming of age. "You're hired. When you want to start?" With the major business out of the way, they turned to small talk. "I heard you flowing in the hallway a few times. You got skills." "Huh. Skills don't pay the bills unless you on wax," Thomas said. "Now that you got that single out, you gonna be leaving this shit alone pretty soon, ain't you?" "Shit. Even on wax, these rappers be getting jerked," explained AD. "Ain't enough cash in that game to keep me around. Besides, I ain't a rapper. I'm a hustler. It just so happens I know how to rap." Back at the burger stand, they sat in the car wrapping things up. "But really, kid, your flow is unbelievable. If you want to get on, I might be able to help you with that. I'm going to London next week." "London?" "Yeah. Chaz's label is sending us over there to hype the single. I thought the white boys over there was all about Guns N' Roses and that freaky-ass house music, that Frankie Knuckles and Ron Hardy shit. I ain't know they listen to rap." "Man, rap is the truth, and the truth is universal. They love this shit over there. It's making the white boys at the record companies look like Richie Rich." AD had seen where the money trail led at meetings with Chaz. Sitting behind a desk was really where he wanted to be, but he dismissed the idea. "Not in my lifetime." He wasn't in his right mind. "I know you going to the big concert at the Apollo in a few weeks." Not waiting for an answer, he passed Thomas back the G. "You on the team now," he said. "You'll be there." He knew Thomas was too hungry to refuse and not hungry enough to bite the hand that fed him. Real recognizes real. That there's crew love. AD honked the horn. "Yo, pta!" The shorty in all black rushed over to the car as they got out. "Park the car and keep the keys. And don't let me catch your ass at McDonald's." Harlem, November 7th. The event. When the event befalleth, there is no denying that it will befall. Abusing some, exalting others, there will be three kinds. Those on the right hand, those on the left hand, and the foremost in the race. After 8 years of Reagan's rule, the winds of change had spread the dark clouds of D.C.'s Thaumiel across the U.S. In January of 1989, one of the most corruptive leaders would claim his throne. But tonight, Malik lay perfectly still, witnessing the flight of a lifeless crow through a broken sky. Rings of smoke from weed and hash erode his ozonosphere the way hairspray does in Spanish Harlem. Through one of the holes, an eagle clutching a serpent glided in on a ray of light that came to rest atop his head. 114 jewels sparkled, and a true vision occurred. Atop the wings of the eagle, Malik climbed, and away they soared, to glimpse a future that he couldn't quite comprehend. A destiny that would be lost, found, and then lost again, but not before he learned that he was the man. Eagles! Malik lay sprawled in the cargo area of the Mazda MP3, his eyes moving rapidly under closed lids, uttering something about eagles. What the fuck is up with Leak? Wondered Half Pint from the middle seat. You hear him back there? Let's wake his ass up. No, Bill said with authority. Let him chill. He ain't really had no sleep since about Wednesday. XS was driving and Dooney was riding shotgun. He shouted, Wednesday? What the fuck he been on? Bill laughed. Some of everything. Check it. He say, sleep is the cousin of death. I guess food is too, 'cause he ain't been eating either. What's the deal? Asked Half Pint. He still bugging about his old man? Yeah, I think so. Plus his mom's is still bugging about him dropping out of school. Shit, my mom's wanting me gone. She wondered what took me so long. XS shot Dooney a confused look. You stopped going after the 8th grade. I know. They laughed and passed back a fifth. It was always the same before a show. Hennessy and a barrel of blunts. Malik, no longer scared to grab the mic and start sparking, had earned a rep for being one of the best in QB. And while he nor the 4 carloads of soldiers were officially performing, this was one of the biggest concerts of the year. And when that many crews came together, put it like this: Apollo kids lived to spit the real. That dude'll be alright when he sees all these hoes, yelled XS. Blocks away from the theater, coatless women moved briskly toward the door. Big door knocker earrings weighing them down, big boot knocking asses busting out of their clothes, big glossy lips glistening under the marquee lights. The music played as they swung into positions to get chosen for dates, while carloads of horny dudes rode by beating their chests and throwing them lines. The 80s had them all acting like apes. Girls found Malik good looking and hand him the pussy, but he wasn't on that tonight. His sights were set on Karma. Cafe au lait complexion, medium build. She reminded him of Whitley from a different world without the accent. They talked and hung out all the time, but she considered Malik just a friend. Her man Chico ran with a crew called the Bricklayers. He was a few years older and was never around. Malik's crew was deep, but their pockets were shallow. Karma kept them around to ease the boredom. She loved shining and wasn't giving it up. Yo, Leak, yelled Bill. Wake the fuck up. We here. He awoke slowly, stretching and brushing the ash off his number 56 Giants jersey. Word? How long I been out, son? A minute, said Bill, passing him the 5th. Malik looked outside. Damn, it's a million dudes out here. Kosh got the police blocking off the streets and shit. Yo ass back there dreaming, said Half Pint. You missed Salt and Pepper and Heavy D getting out the limousine. You lying. No, he ain't, said XS. Word up. Magazines is out there taking pictures and shit, added Dooney. Damn. They stayed in the van getting bent. waiting for Bagheera, Merlin, Tiny, Stone, and the rest of the dudes to show up. Inside the building was on 10. Even though the messenger of prophecy had foretold the coming of the Dajjal, he was mad as hell about the election of the 41st president. Tonight, he promised to bring the noise. The scent of weed was heavy in patches all over the theater, especially the balcony. The show hadn't started yet, and dudes up there were already high, gladiating, swinging razors and chairs. The promoters sent an intern from their street team on stage to calm them down. "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dizzy. I'm speaking on behalf of the promoters of this event. We're not with none of that standing around looking hard and shit. That's why we as a people can't have nothing. Do y'all even know what it means to be black?" He stopped and looked around. "We all came here for a party, so I want to see y'all stand the fuck up and have a good time." His voice cracked under the pressure. The crowd went silent, and needless to say, Dizzy was booed off stage that night, but he was driven and determined to make the world love him. Eventually, he'd get it right. Next, a legend in a gray retro suit, bow tie, and dark glasses was escorted to the stage to show him how it was done. Hey, now, it's all right." There was a murmur in the crowd. Those in the know stood and applauded. Someone yelled, "It's the Raisin Man!" Grinning from ear to ear and rocking like a chair, he said, "Oh yeah, that's right. If you folks want this show to go on, let me hear you say yeah." The crowd shouted, "Yeah!" "That's good, because you all know the rules when you came in here," he said enthusiastically. If you know me, you know I believe it ain't no harm in having a little taste." Laughter erupted throughout the crowd. "But don't lose your cool and start messing up the man's place, all right? Now, some of you might know that, but I'm a Florida boy myself. What you probably didn't know was that I used to live right around here at the Hotel Teresa." The crowd recognized. "So I see you in Harlem." Every seat on the main floor of the Apollo went empty as Harlem stood up. Fame and fortune were there with some live chicks sporting ice and matching furs. "I see the girl with the diamond ring. She know how to shake that thing. I see Brooklyn and Queens up there in the balcony with their mind on their money. Y'all stop thinking pennies and start thinking dollars." The Guns and the rest of BK bust their heat in the air while the mob from QB bust theirs back. AD was in the VIP section, talking slick and whispering in the ear of all the girls, including Karma. She smiled and whispered back the things that groupies say. She and Malik made eye contact, and she wondered if he'd looked at her differently tomorrow. "I see the Bronx and everybody in the ghettos with a big stack of bills that get bigger each day. Any man could go wrong when he's busted. You all gonna have to clean up some of this shit, but I still love you, and I ain't giving up on none of you." Love begets love. His love brought a standing ovation from all 5 boroughs. "All right now, no one came here to hear me preach, so I'm going to pack my things and go. But before I do, who'd y'all come to see?" The lights went down and the air raid sirens blared. The theater reached a frenzied pitch as the cold lamper, dressed in a top hat and bright yellow tracksuit, rushed the stage and cleared the way for the Prophet of Rage. Excerpt 38. Excerpt 38 is Party for Your Right to Fight by Public Enemy.
When he emerged from hell, it was his so-called government that made this occur like the grafted devils they were. Jay to Hoover, and he could have proved it. He had King and etc. Also the party with Newton, Cleaver, and Seal, he ended. So get up, time to get him back. You got it. Get back on the track. You got it. Work from the honor.
90 minutes later, the lights came on, and the streets were crawling with pretty cars and women. Made men were networking and discussing future enterprises, while aspiring DJs, producers, and rappers passed blunts and got the cypher started. Ayes rode up with one of his baddest stallions. He introduced Malik to the Guns and another group called LAIR. When the commission approached with Karma and her girls behind them, all the crab MCs in the crowd bailed. Ayes asked Malik discreetly, "Son, you holding heat?" Malik was ready to ride for him. "Yeah, you alright, God? What's the deal?" "You know my style, baby bro. You stay cool." AD slid up, slapped hands with Thomas, and whispered something to him. Ayaz and Theo gave each other dap, while Karma gave Malik a nervous hug. "Hey Malik, what's up?" She introduced him to AD. They traded pounds and began the cipher. Thomas went first. He threw an ill verse in about Madonna, virgins, young girls, and high men. Ayaz was up next. He was all about his dean, spitting knowledge for the Asiatic by any means. Next up was AD, who was living that life. He warmed the crowd with cashmere thoughts for those stuck living trife. And after 16 rounds, some lines had escaped unnoticed, but naked eyes had seen what was about to go down and stayed focused. AD said a verse loaded with double entendres about those who squeeze first. Then, with one thing on his mind and one hand on Karma's behind, he lifted up his mink and revealed the Tech 9. Theo hyped up the crowd. "Y'all dudes know who's winning." AD was spitting venom into the minds of the women. A broke brother without a pot to piss in. Malik's thoughts were spinning, and he looked up to AD, and his big chain glistened. Son's dome was aching, his heart was breaking, and all this amid snakes faking and perpetrating. The index finger of his hand just inching towards the trigger that was tucked in his waistband. Remember the clot. I'm here to teach man that which he knew not. To the voices he listened, continue with his mission, put his pride on the line, and shot back half a bar that ended with mankind. In the name of God, the beneficent, the merciful, I seek refuge in the Lord of men, the King of men, the God of men, from the evil whisperings of Satan, who whispers into the hearts of men, from among the jinn and the men. AD gave Malik dap. He smiled and pretended to be a fan. Ayaz gave him some advice. Just because a guy pressed palms with you, don't make him your man.